The all-new HR-V is shockingly premium for its price tag, but more importantly, it reminds me of older Hondas, for better and worse. So today I want to highlight the highs, the lows, and some of the biggest changes for the new generation. This is the part where I tell you the few changes for the new model year, but in the case of the HR-V, it is completely new. The previous car was based on the old Fitz platform, whereas now we're riding on Honda's global architecture, and it's really closely related to the new Civic underneath, which is a good thing. It also means the car grew in length by about 9.5 inches, and it got a bit wider without getting any taller, and now it has a larger engine to carry around more mass, so it's not any quicker, but that's not the point. Before we continue, if you enjoy fun, detailed car content without fluff, consider subscribing and hitting the bell for notifications. If you want all of my thoughts and the features of the HR-V, I'd check out my full review I already posted. So the first thing that separates the HR-V, in my opinion, from everything else is its handling. So the steering in here, one has a quick ratio. The on-center feel isn't too darty, yet it remains tight and reacts predictably. Just like kids committing battery on their friends, body roll is present but almost never concerning. So it doesn't change direction as rapidly as something like a Subaru Crosstrek, but it offers more communication in the steering, and it feels more precise and natural. I think it's a toss-up between this and the Mazda CX-30 in terms of which one is more fun, and that is saying a lot. Plus, this has fully independent suspension, whether you go front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive, so you can throw this on a back road that's rough. Yeah, it won't be the most forgiving in the class, but it stays poised, confident, and it's just overall best described as playful. It kind of reminds me of an older Civic in that way. And my next reason kind of attaches to the previous one and is a little bit more vague, but it's that this is a very approachable, easygoing car to drive. So it does this through a couple things. One, pretty good visibility, especially out of the front. The windshield feels very close to you, so you kind of get a sense of where everything is. And then when you combine that with the communicative direct steering and the linear, albeit gutless engine, it's a very easy, enjoyable experience around town. And I'll get into that powertrain more here soon. So the next big pro, and this is probably my favorite thing, is how premium it is. And really, I'm gonna attach to this one a wow factor. So if you compare this to a lot of vehicles in the segment that are, around $30,000, $31,000, they're not going to look as premium on the inside and the outside as this. I think the CX-30 maybe has an edge on the interior, but this just looks upscale to me. Now, of course, styling is subjective, so let me know your thoughts in the comments section, but really I was quite impressed seeing this in person for the first time. And it's complemented by the standard LED headlights with daytime running lights, standard LED taillights, alloy wheels, and then upscale looking controls on the interior with a nice semi-digital gauge cluster on all trims. Despite the modern appeal, it does have a tactile analog feeling throughout. And they even incorporate an older style Honda speedometer. Nice little touch. You have a cabin that surrounds you in soft touch materials, even where your knees rest. It's really nice for taller people. And the tech on the interior not only looks good, but also is easy to interact with. You'll have an infotainment system with physical buttons incorporated. Honda keeps at least the volume dial for the top trim and the tune dial if you go with the lower trim models, which are all priced pretty competitively. Granted, you can't get some features like heated steering wheel or a power rear gate, but I would hands down take the great quality of this interior over added features like that. You'll have HVAC controls with very clicky, satisfying dials and buttons, and the details like the steering wheel buttons, which are surrounded with a gloss black plastic that makes it look nice, but are matte finished themselves, allows for them to age better. It feels solid and has near CX-30 levels of material quality. But where the Mazda falters in practicality, the HR-V steps up, and that's my next reason. I'm 6'3" and I fit in the front and back just fine, which is good for a car with this footprint. The cargo space is great, especially with the rear seats folded, and the interior storage cubbies are nicely executed. I do wish it had at least one cup holder capable of wrestling my 40-ounce Hydro Flask, and it is odd for them to exclude a rear center armrest and rear vents on all trims. While this is not a disadvantage compared to others, I do miss the insane space to exterior size ratio of the old car, along with the magic seats, but at least it retains a level of simplicity like the previous model. And that leads me to my last reason: they have a proven powertrain underneath the hood. So instead of going with something like their 1.5 liter turbo, Honda chose to go with the old K20. Yeah, it's not the most efficient engine anymore, albeit I did beat the EPA ratings easily on the highway. And it's not the best sounding. And when it's paired to the CVT, a 10-second 0 to 60 is your reality. But both the engine and transmission have proven themselves to be pretty reliable. Obviously, the car itself is all new, so I can't talk too much about predicted dependability here, but since this is based on the same platform that underpinned the 10th gen Civic, and the engine and transmission is, it's basically a carryover from that car, I can make a few assumptions. When that car first released, it had a lot of little finicky issues, infotainment system problems, some powertrain bugs, but as the generation carried on, a lot of those issues died out. The worst the old Civic suffered from was bad AC initially, along with some steering issues too. After 2018, some miscellaneous woes persisted, like with the brakes, as did a few reports of oil dilution with the 1.5 turbo, which is why I'm partially glad that they chose the 2-liter as the sole engine. Overall, this gen of HR-V appears to have what it takes to be a good long-term investment. Now let's talk some of the negatives. Road noise. It's not inherently offensive, but it does remind me again of older Honda products, this time just in the less good way, which contradicts the feeling of the upscale interior. Although that interior also has one big fault, and that's the seats. They just feel stiff. They have this weird seat bottom that has multiple levels to it, and it just never let me get all that comfortable. It's still more than tolerable, and I'm sure people can get used to it, but there are better designed seats in the class, plus these do not have lumbar adjustment even on the top trim. This also has a more firm ride than the Corolla Cross or Crosstrek, so if you want the most posh driving car in the class, the HR-V may be not it. Additionally, there's not an option for a Bose or JBL rivaling sound system, and as I said earlier, it does lack the availability of some luxury features you will find on other loaded counterparts. And the last thing is the powertrain performance. From a stop, it takes a little while to get into that power band, so it really does make for a sluggish experience. I'm also hoping that Honda will at least add the option of another powertrain in the future to help alleviate this, whether it's the 1.5 turbo or hopefully a hybrid. Once you get up to speed, it gets the job done just fine, like the Subaru Crosstrek with the 2-liter. It'll work for most of the type of buyers that are getting into vehicles like the HR-V, but if you live in mountains or you're regularly hauling a lot of gear, I think you might be disappointed. For most people interested in a subcompact or small SUV, the HR-V checks the boxes that it needs to. It's spacious, but then it adds in a fun personality, an analog, inviting, yet premium interior without a whole lot of drawbacks. So even though I would still consider the Mazda CX-30 or a manual Crosstrek my personal favorites in the segment, if someone were to walk up to me and ask for a subcompact recommendation, this would be my gut reaction because it has its priorities in check when it comes to the usual audience. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and help me with my ongoing battle against the YouTube algorithm. If you want to see more, consider subscribing and hitting the bell for notifications. And thank you to my very loyal patrons. I'll catch you in the next one. There's a cat back there, but he's sleeping. I'm just gonna let him chill. Maybe I'll say hi later. Okay.